We bring you to the darker side of investigations. This is the Investigation Guru podcast with Sean and Dana. This is the official podcast for Red Door Investigations. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Investigation Guru podcast. This is the official podcast for Red Door Investigations. My name is Sean and I will be your host this evening. So I have a few announcements kind of get out of the way and let you guys know about. If you follow us on social media at all, INVGURUPOD, InvGuruPod on Twitter, then you are already pretty much aware of a couple of the changes that are coming to the podcast. This is the final episode of Season 1. Season 1 was pretty much us getting used to the microphone and getting our gear all tuned up, etc. Season 2 is coming very shortly, and with it will come a lot of polish and several new and exciting changes. We will have a new intro and outro, as well as new music and a wealth of new content ideas. We've purchased some new editing equipment, and I have become much more comfortable with the editing program, so our episodes should sound much better as well. Beginning in a couple of weeks, we will start Season 2 of the podcast, and Season 2 is really where things will become a lot more cohesive and defined. We're going to be focusing much more on the true crime content we are passionate about, and less on the PI stuff. We feel that this will be a much more active direction, and will allow us to branch off from our blog, which is where we post pretty much a whole lot of the stuff geared more towards the private investigation genre. So if that type of content interests you, please head over to our blog at www.reddoorinvestigations.com/news and get your fill there. Episode 1 of Season 2 will discuss the shocking and horrible case of Chris Watts. He strangled his pregnant wife and then killed their 2 young daughters. He then buried them in an oil tank in a field that was serviced by the company he worked for. After Chris Watts, we will dive deep into the Lori Vallow case, the Maura Murray disappearance, the Jonestown massacre, Casey Anthony, and the Jodi Arias case. As you can see, we have quite a bunch of great new content coming up, so please don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. In the last episode, we discussed 5 things that a private investigator is legally allowed to do. In this episode, we're going to flip the script and discuss 5 things that a private investigator can never do under any circumstances. Now, there's a whole lot of kind of gray area surrounding private investigators, many of whom take full advantage of this fact. But there are state and federal laws that are in place to protect the public. A lot of private investigators, we're kind of bound by a lot of the same constraints and laws that members of the general public are. We kind of went into this a little bit last week, but private investigators really are not, we don't have special powers. We're not members of law enforcement. Matter of fact, that's actually one of the things we're going to talk about today, is that private investigators cannot kind of say that they are police officers or members of the FBI or anything like that, because that would grant kind of us a whole lot of powers that the state does not recognize that we have. So that is really a very, very bad thing for us to do. If you are a member of the general public and you see any of the behaviors on this list, make sure that you call the police, because that is something that is very, very bad. This person is not someone that you want to do business with. Gators, again, kind of have that very morally loose, very, ethically challenged, and they will do pretty much anything that they know how to do in order to satisfy their clients and make some money. But again, there are certain things that are very, very illegal and very, very unethical. And so we're going to talk about some of those things here today. If you're in the business and you do any of these things, and this is one of the ways that you service your clients, that you get money, give yourself a gut check, because you are in the business for the absolute wrong reasons. There is no excuse for any of these behaviors, and for you to continue to practice unlicensed, or you continue to violate private property norms or things like that, then that is something that is giving the rest of us a bad name. Please stop. So, without further ado, here are 5 things that a private investigator can never do under any circumstances whatsoever. Again, there's kind of a lot of legal gray area on a lot of these things. A lot of the laws are going to vary from state to state, but the things on this list, these 5 things we're going to talk about tonight, are pretty much illegal in all 50 states. There's not any one, not that I'm aware of anyway. There are no jurisdictions or no states or no provinces in which any of the behaviors on this list are legal or allowed, not to mention the fact that they are completely unethical. Anybody who kind of does these behaviors is really someone you just do not want to be associated with, because not only can it land the private investigator in jail, it can also land you in jail as well if you are an accomplice or you help in any way. So again, just kind of keep these in the back of your mind. If this is something that you think that you might have wanted to hire a private investigator to do for you, make sure that you really don't, you may not have been aware. I guess a good way to put this. But the private investigator himself definitely should have known better. Anybody who ever offers to do any of these things, or anybody who ever says, yes, this is something that I can do, that is a very good litmus test that this person is not on the up and up, that they are someone who is not to be hired, and certainly not someone that you want representing you or representing your case in a court of law, should it ever come to that. All right, number 1. A private investigator cannot enter your private property under any circumstances. Now, this is rule number 1 for a very good reason. This one will get a private investigator in a world of trouble faster than pretty much almost anything else. Private property laws are very, very strict in all 50 states. Your property is your property, and there is really no way to get around that. Any private investigator who offers to plant bugs or plant hidden cameras inside a person's house, that is something that is very, very illegal. And even if they were to have gotten something, of value that you think you might want to use in a divorce proceeding or something like that, the judge will throw it out and it won't be usable anyway. So again, just kind of keep in the back of your mind that anybody who ever offers to trespass or enter any kind of private property to set up any kind of recording equipment, that is very, very bad, very, very illegal, very, very unethical. And that is someone who will get you and your case thrown out faster than anything else. Again, we're bound by kind of the same trespassing laws that everyone else is. We don't have any kind of special powers or special authority to be able to trespass just because we have a license to be private investigators by our state. Not only can we not enter your house, but we also can't even step foot on your property or anything contained on that property. If you have a barn in the back of your yard or whatever, that is still considered your property. That is something that is completely off limits. We can't plant hidden cameras back there to watch through your open windows or anything like that. That is, again, that's very, very bad. Don't ask us to do it because we won't. No self-respecting private investigator who operates legally will want anything to do with that. Kind of on the nature of this private property, all of these things, this is your property and it's your secrets. What you do inside your own home is completely up to you, short of things that violate other laws. But as far as, if you want to, do anything that, might be questionable, as long as it's not illegal, that is completely up to you. And you are free to do that within your rights. And there is nothing that the outside world should ever know about that. This is something that, your private property is yours. And there is no way for us to get any kind of information about that. So rest assured that everything that happens inside your house or your apartment is completely off limits. And even if, you had a kind of an ethically questionable private investigator who was willing to do any of those things, then the judge would certainly have things to say about that and really would not even allow that testimony or that evidence to be even thought about being admissible. There is one exception to this rule for private investigators who serve process, who basically deliver court documents, summons, and things like that. If you've ever had anyone serve you process, someone who knocks on your door and says, "Here, you've been served. These are for you," etc. And their court documents, summons to appear or something like that. Those people are allowed to come up and be on your property in order to serve you process. Now, that doesn't mean that we can, come into your house or anything like that, but it's not really considered trespassing for us to come onto your property and knock on your door and be able to serve you that process. There's also, if you have a no trespassing sign posted on your property, this would even, curtail process service. We are not allowed to serve process on property that has a no trespassing sign posted. No trespassing means just that, no trespassing whatsoever. If someone, if you have a no trespassing sign, then in some states and some jurisdictions, you are allowed to use deadly force if someone violates that. So again, if it's something that there is that sign, that no trespassing sign, and if it's visible and you can prove that, the process server, the private investigator, or pretty much any member of the public sees that sign and violates that request, that is trespassing, and that is illegal. Number 2, a private investigator cannot access your medical, financial, or educational records. A private investigator has an access to a wide array of information. However, there are certain things that are protected by the federal government and are therefore kind of out of reach. Now, we talked a little bit about last week about using information information that is within the public domain. These three things are not in the public domain. These three things are completely off limits. And I might have even touched on that on last week's episode that, your medical records and your educational records and your financial records, those are all completely off limit. They are private. They are protected. There is no way for us to, impersonate you and call your bank or call your doctor and find out what kind of recent health check, the results of your last physical, or, we can't access your bank accounts or bank records or anything like that and pretending to be you. We cannot impersonate someone else in order to get information about that person. We also can't impersonate police officers or other members of law enforcement. Number 3, we cannot misrepresent ourselves as a member of law enforcement. We just kind of talked about that. Unless, of course, we are. Now, there are a lot of private investigators that are actually police officers, and they do this as kind of a side gig. And a lot of times, real live active police officers will do private investigations on the side, nights and weekends or whatever, on times that they are not active. A lot of also retired police officers will take up private investigations because, the type of work that we do is very, very similar to what a lot of police officers do, especially police detectives. We just do it in the public sector, and we don't have a lot of the civil authorities that police officers do. We can't arrest people, or we can't do things like that. So again, unless we are actually a member of law enforcement, we cannot say that we are. We can't use that as a means to get any kind of information, and we can't use that as a way to coerce or force someone to give us information. If we're trying to find a lost vehicle or a missing child or something like that, we can't say that we are, with the FBI or police or whatever like that to kind of intimidate or coerce someone to give us information that they might not otherwise give us. With very few exceptions, private investigators we're bound by pretty much the same laws that everyone else is. We have no special rights or no special responsibilities. We are not able to do things that everyone else is able to do. Now there are certain things that we do have access to, certain databases and certain points of information that might not be available to the general public. But as far as behaviors and as far as laws, like trespassing laws or something like that, we are just as bound by those as everyone else. So again, stop asking us to do it. We're not going to do that. We're not going to lie and say that we are members of police or any kind of law enforcement in order to get information or try and get data from online sources or anything like that. Number 4, we cannot hack into someone's electronic devices. Even the FBI can't brute force your cell phone and get access without your authorization or even your help. Remember that big case kind of a while back ago where Apple refused to unlock a phone for one of the shooters in Pensacola, Florida? It was kind of a big to do, a big news case that, the FBI was really wanting Apple to unlock this guy's cell phone so that they could, see chat messages or, see if he was a member of any kind of organization or anything like that. And Apple refused to do it. So even the FBI with their, wealth of resources and things like that are not able to do it. It's a very, very difficult, it takes a great deal of technical knowledge. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's very, very difficult to do. And the general public, the general population, even the everyday run of the mill private investigator, unless you are, you have kind of this hacking background, and you have, very specialized, very professional level, hacking gear or tools or whatever. That's going to be something that we are just not able to do. So rest assured, they have designed these things to be very, very secure and very, very safe. So without your passcode, it's almost impossible to open these electronic devices. And, with a lot of the newer security features, like if you enter the wrong password 5 times or whatever, then it's going to completely erase the entire phone anyway. So there's no way to really brute force and just kind of try, every permutation and every combination of 4 digits or 8 digits or 9 digits or however many it's up to now. It's a very, very difficult. It's kind of a needle in the haystack. So if we do not know the passcode to your phone, or we don't know the passcode to your iPad, it's just all but impossible to get inside that. There's no way to really bypass and get around that. Hacking into phones and things like that, it's not only illegal, but it's also just kind of one of those things that, like I was talking about earlier, it's very, very difficult to do. The FBI and with all of their resources and things, they are not able to reach in and get your personal information off of your phone. Your phone is actually probably one of the more secure electronic devices that you have. Your computer, it's a lot easier to get into your computer than it is your phone. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind, but don't be lackadaisical. Don't, make sure that your password is secure. Don't use something very obvious like your birthday or your spouse's birthday. Make it, try and make it as randomized as you possibly can. 1, 2, 3, 4 is of course a horrible passcode. 0000 is another bad one. Your month and year, or your month and day of your birth, that is again another very easily found out or very easily discovered combination. So that is some of the few that people will try. So if it's not one of those very easily discovered or easily found out sequences of numbers, then your phone is actually pretty safe. Make sure that you turn on that setting. I can't remember exactly where it is in the iPhone. I've never had an Android, so I can't help you there. But make sure that you turn on that setting where you only get 5 or 10 chances, and if you mess up or you enter the wrong number 5 or 10 times in a row, then it will completely erase the phone and make it useless for anybody to use. And number 5, we cannot wiretap someone's phone. This again is going to be kind of firmly in the camp of violating federal law. In some states, it is necessary to notify one party of the recording. So if you want to, record a conversation, some states are one-party states and some states are two-party states. If you are in a two-party state, then both people on the line must be notified that it is recorded, and both people must consent. If you live in a one-party state, then only one person on the line must be aware that you are recording, and the other person can be completely unaware that these recordings are happening. That's what got Mel Gibson in trouble. Anytime you see, any kind of recorded conversation, President Trump got in trouble with the same thing. So a lot of these things, if you live in a one-party state, then only one member of the conversation needs to be aware, and they can record the other person without their knowledge or consent. But again, being able to wiretap and get in and hardwire into someone's phone line to listen into their conversations or record their conversations, if they are not one of the members of the party on the phone call itself, then that violates federal law. There's nothing wrong with, if you live in a one-party state, there's nothing wrong with taping a conversation that you are a part of, that you are party to. But where you run into problems is if you start hacking in and wiretapping people's phones to listen into conversations that you are not a part of. If you are not a part of the conversation, then you have no business listening in and you have no business recording. That is a violation of FCC laws, and that will land you in a nice, comfy federal penitentiary. That's what it's called, right? Penitentiary, federal prison, whatever. So that was 5 things that a private investigator cannot do under any circumstances whatsoever. Now, again, remember that the laws are going to vary from state to state, but to my knowledge, the things we discussed here are pretty much illegal in all 50 states. I want to kind of, again, caution you that if a private investigator ever offers you any of the services that we discussed in this podcast, make sure that you run the other direction. That is not someone that you want to be associated with. That is not someone that you want to do business with. And that is certainly not someone you want presenting evidence for a court case that you have pending. This will not end well for you, and it could very well land you both in prison. All right, so thank you very much for listening. This was the final episode of season 1. Big changes coming to the podcast in season 2. We're getting the new intro music, the new outro, new music tracks coming in. We've hired a professional voice actor to voice our intros, and we're getting brand new music. We've bought some new equipment. You might be able to tell a little bit of difference in the audio quality of this episode compared to the last one. So hopefully that is coming through. I'm becoming much more knowledgeable in Adobe Audition, which is what we use to edit our podcast. So hopefully, you're going to be able to kind of see that we are trying to step up our game, and we're trying to improve the quality of what we send you every week. Again, please keep in mind that we are still very new at this, and we are trying to kind of get our feet wet and get really kind of our identity fixed on where we want to focus. But we have pretty much decided that we're going to focus more on the true crime content going forward, and less really on the private investigation business these types of episodes that we've been having, the past 2 or 3 episodes. So, if you're really more into true crime content than you are into really the private investigation stuff, then this is a very good direction that we are going for you. If you're more interested in the private investigation, please again also head over to our blog, and we will continue to post information and articles that are more geared in that direction. This has been the Investigation Guru podcast. My name is Sean, and we are signing off. Have a nice day. Thank you very much. See you next time.